Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and welcome to yet another episode of For Honor Executions Graded, the series where we look at each hero's individual executions and decide just how good they are by giving them all a grade. We've been doing this for a while, guys, and I'm super excited to move on. We're past the Vanguards, we're past the Assassins, we are now going into the heavies, and we're getting things started with Warlord. I am super excited to get started on this. Before we do, though, all of you people watching this live in chat right now, go ahead and post your predictions. How good do you think Warlord's executions are going to be? What do you expect them to get? For those of you who are brand new to the series, take a look in the upper right-hand corner of the screen or in the description down below, and you'll be given a link to a video called That's an Execution, which is where I go over all of my grading rubrics, my ideas behind how I do this, basically what I'm looking for in full detail. You can get the full idea of how I do this series from those videos. But if you are familiar with the series but just need a quick crash course, I'll do a very fast reminder right now. As we go through each individual execution, I'll be looking for 4 criteria. How lethal is the execution? Like, is it deadly? How realistic is it? Could it realistically be done? How efficient is it? In other words, like, is it good for the battlefield? Is it quick? That kind of thing. And then how cool is it? Does it fit their personality? Is it flashy? Is it fun to see? That kind of thing. I look for all 4 of those criteria. I get myself a grade, and then after I go through all of the executions that they have, and in Warlord's case, that's 17 executions, after going through all 17 unique executions, I then average it all out to get a final grade for the hero. Does that make sense? Awesome. I'm super excited to get started on this. So, what do you say we not waste any more time and take a look at Warlord's unique executions? Are you excited? Oh, I'm excited. Let's do this. First up is Targeted Strike. Alright, so for Targeted Strike lethality, that's definitely a 4. I can definitely see this being very deadly. You're plunging the sword deep into the throat. This is going to kill. I like the way he just kind of falls over. That's kind of funny. For realism, this is also a 4. I can see this happening. I think it's a little silly that the warden catches the shield. I don't think that'd be something anyone else would do. It's like, oh, let me hold this for you. That's the one thing that I think is a little silly. But everything else about this I could see happening, especially with the Warlord grabbing the sword with both hands to plunge it in. That adds more force to it, so I'll give it that. For efficiency, I gave it a 4. Even though he's throwing his shield, he still has his sword for defensive purposes, and he doesn't waste time. He comes in with the strike, hits the throat, and it's over. I think that's just fine. And I like the fact that even though he threw his shield, he makes up for it by using both hands on his sword, which I think is essential to get that force in. So I'll give it that. And then for cool factor, I do have to give it a 4. Not only is it funny, I just think it kind of fits Warlord. Kind of this cocky, just, hold this, dead, all right, give me that. Go to sleep. Like, just, I always look at Warlord as kind of this gruff elder who's just seen a lot of battles, and at some point it's just kind of like, I'm just looking for a real challenge, a real struggle fest, you know, that kind of thing. I'm looking for something that's really going to push me, and you're just not it, you know, that kind of thing. And that kind of look, that's what this kind of looks like to me. I really enjoy that. So yes, guys, starting off with a 16 out of 16, a 100% for Warlord right out the gate. Love this execution. Next up is Final Slumber. Ah, yes, Final Slumber. Okay, so for lethality, that's definitely a 4. It's plunging right into the heart. This strike will kill. In fact, it looks like the warden's starting to die anyway, so this is just finishing him off, so I like that. That's very good. For realism, I gave it a 4 because you could do this. It doesn't, I mean, it's a little weird that he uses one hand to push it in, but it also looks like he's not trying to go that deep. It looks like the sword didn't puncture that deep into him, almost like it's just a minor flesh wound, but it went deep enough to get to the heart, which is what he needed to do, so that's fine. For efficiency, though, it does take a hit. This is a 2 for efficiency. While he doesn't take a whole lot of time, and he does still have his shield for defense, in fact, he seems to put the shield in a position for that purpose, he's still stopping the battle to kneel down and show his respect. The reason I didn't give it a 1 is because he still has his shield for one thing, and you know what? Give it some credit, this is very respectful. I gotta give him that. That is nice. Which gives it a 4 for cool factor. Like, for cool factor, I gave it a 4. It's just really honorable what he's doing here. I really think that's awesome. It's one of those executions where it's like, genuinely, it look again, like that gruff older man, like, kind of like, you did good, you have nothing to be ashamed of, go on to Valhalla. I thought that this was a very good execution for Warlord, one of the most respectful in the game. I really like it. It reminds me a little bit of Warden's moment of silence execution, where he takes a moment to pray over the victim. This is kind of what that's a similar vibe. So for this execution, that's a 14 out of 16, which is an 88%. Still a really good one. Next is the best offense. All right, excellent. So for the best offense, I went with lethality 4. You are basically plunging this through and out the chest. That could totally happen. That could totally kill. I'm down with that. For realism, I gave it a 4 as well. Now, you might think, wait, wouldn't it be hard to push the sword all the way through him? Keep in mind that the Warden is coming in with a lot of velocity here. Like, he's coming in with these very fast strikes, and then using that velocity, the Warlord basically punches through and shoves that sword clean through. Plus, the Ulfbert he's using are weapons that can stab very, very easily. So I'm going to give it a pass on that. For efficiency, I gave it a 4. I really like the way he uses the shield here. This is how you'd want to use a Viking shield. Just deflecting the strike, but then allowing it to turn into, like, so watch when Warden throws the initial punch. Just lets it deflect, then leans him up against the shield so that his weight is coming down. All that velocity is throwing the Warden down on the shield, and then just punch through as he's coming into it. So I really like that. I really, really like that. That's great for efficiency. And then for cool factor, I gotta give it a 4 for cool factor, mostly because it's one of the moments where Warlord is using his shield and sword the way a Viking would. One of the problems I always had with Warlord is his fighting style. The way in which he fights does not match well with history. Historically speaking, the way you use a shield and sword is not just wild, they just wide swings. You want to be more tight. You want to be more focused. You duck behind your shield, let the guy deflect off of it, and then stab with your sword or strike with your sword. You wouldn't just take these wild ass swings that don't hit anything. So this is very, very good. I gave this one a 16 out of 16, which is another 100%. Next is can't punch this. Ah, excellent. Okay, so for lethality, this is a 4. We have 2 focused strikes on different parts of the ward. One is across the back, the other is across the hip. And then finally, a shield bash to the throat. With all the blood loss and bashing in the throat, he's dead. This guy's going to die, so that's a 4 for lethality. For realism, again, this is very realistic. Again, we're seeing the Warden using the shield and sword exactly the way it was meant to be by a Viking, which goes into efficiency, which is once again a 4 out of 4, because just dang, guys, this is awesome. Like, again, I love that he's deflecting and then following up with a strike. Deflecting, follow up with a strike. This is how you want to use the sword and shield of a Viking. This is how they would fight, you know? Let that strike just bounce off, just slide that attack off, then strike. Slide the attack off, then strike. This is proper form for a Viking sword and shield. I love it. This is fantastic. And then for cool factor, do I even need to say it? 4 out of 4. This was phenomenal. It's exactly what I wanted to see from Warlord. This is exactly how I want him to fight. This would be this would actually be an almost as good a weapon set as what Black Prior uses, in my opinion, because again, with the Black Prior, I wish the Black Prior had like a spear or a pike or something to use with his shield, but it's fine. With this, though, when I think the Viking sword and shield, this is exactly how I see them fighting. This is exactly how I want to see it. So this is phenomenal. So yes, guys, the third, 16 out of 16. This is another 100%. I love this execution. Next is Norse Guillotine. All right, so the Norse line that he said there, the line that he said was Scandinavian for you are food for the wolves. All right, so how do I like this one? Well, for lethality, he's losing a head, so that's a 4 out of 4 for lethality, obviously. But for realism, this is a 1, unfortunately. Bear traps like this. First of all, the way he activates it, just that kind of stomp down. I see that a lot. You couldn't activate a bear trap like that. It requires a lot more pressure and a little bit more focus to open a bear trap like that. And even if you could open it like this, with a bear trap slamming down on your head or neck, it's not going to take off your head. Even if it was sharp like that, it could bury deep into your neck. It could chomp down hard on your neck, but it couldn't take your whole head off. I mean, like, think about it. If a bear trap, let's say the bear actually stepped in it. If it had that kind of force, it might take the bear's whole paw off if they stepped in it. So, no, like, this wouldn't take off your head. That's unrealistic. That wouldn't happen. And then for efficiency, no, this is a 1 for me too. You're standing there, and while you do have your weapons, you are using a weapon that isn't really a weapon. It's more of a trap. It's more of a sabotage thing. And then trying to press them down onto it. you're also taking 1 foot off of the ground and putting it on a guy to try to press him down. If you get attacked, what happens if you get attacked? Think about that for a second. If you get attacked, like let's say that a Shugoki runs in and hit you, you have to take your foot off of his back now. Warden can get up and keep fighting. You have risked the death of your enemy for kind of a gag or joke execution. And I don't like that. I wish that you wouldn't do that. For cool factor, though, I do give it a 4. I mean, this is kind of solid. This is kind of badass. And again, it feels kind of like what something a Warlord would do. Just kind of like, I'm still looking for that great battle and you didn't provide it, so I'm going to leave you as food for the wolves, you know? So yeah, I definitely do like this one, but I have to acknowledge it's not realistic and it's not efficient. So it's lethal, it's cool, but it lacks in the other 2 departments. That gives this one a 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. Next is Smack in the Face. Okay, Smack in the Face. All right, so for lethality, I'll give it a 3. I'm pretty sure this would kill, and smacking a person dead in the face with a shield, yeah, it's probably going to break the nose or break the neck, maybe. I don't know. Again, maybe it's because I have been hit in the face before, hit in the head before, in matches and in real life. I've been hit by weapons before, and I'm still alive to talk about it, you know? So sometimes when I see just a regular blunt object hit the head, a part of me is kind of like, I don't know. Plus, look at the way Warden hit him. It doesn't look 100% powerful. Like, it looks almost like he's holding back a little bit. Watch it again and tell me what you think. Like, it looks... it doesn't look all that strong the way he hits him, so I'm going to give it a 3. For realism, it's a 2. When he stabs through the hand and then turns the hand to stab through the knee, you probably couldn't do that. Striking what you're basically doing is you're pushing the sword through the hand. That's going to be difficult enough to do, but then take that and then stab it through the kneecap, down through the bone. No, I'm sorry, that's going to be way too difficult to do with a sword. That's going to be way too difficult to pull off with a sword. So I gave it a 2 only because, technically speaking, if you're not stabbing into the bone and you're just going down the muscle, which is a horrifying thing to think about, then you could maybe do this if you were Mr. Lucky McLuck on his lucky day to do this. You know, like, yeah, I suppose, but I have my doubts. For efficiency, I give it a 3. It is quick, and you're locking down your opponent's hand and knee so that they're not going to get away, so that is nice, but I feel like this whole part, this setup to lock them in place, is only necessary if you know you're going to get the kill, and I don't know you necessarily got the kill. For cool factor, though, I gave it a 2. This one just doesn't impress me as much. It's cool, and it definitely is horrifying to look at, considering, like, just try to imagine that pain. Ugh. But at the same time, you're basically just smacking a dude in the face with your shield. And, I don't know. I mean, look at it. It's kind of goofy, isn't it? It's just a little goofy. If it wasn't for that opening part where you stab the hand in the knee, I would imagine if that part wasn't there and you were just smacking them with your shield. I feel like that'd be kind of weak sauce, wouldn't it? So that gives this one another 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. Bop. Next is Nailed Down.
Face your heresy!
All right, for Nailed Down, that's a 4 for lethality. You basically stab this guy through the heart and then decided to just keep hammering it down. So yeah, that's 4 out of 4. That would kill, no question. For realism, yeah, it's a 4. You could do this. This is a 4 out of 4. You could totally 100% do this. Just keep hammering down that sword over and over again into their heart. Like, yeah, you could do that. It's realistic enough. For efficiency, though, it is a 2. The only reason it's not a 1 is because, I mean, technically each blow is killing him, and you still have your shield to defend yourself with, which is nice. But think about what you're doing here. You've basically already secured the kill by stabbing into their heart. You've let go of your sword to just hammer it down. Now, here's the funny thing. You probably only needed to hammer it down once, if at all, to get the kill. You don't need to do it again. And notice how he has to stop to yank the sword out, to really struggle to pull it out. You wouldn't have had to do that if you just stabbed him, shoved it down once, and then moved on. But it's, I guess. And then for cool factor, I guess I'll give it a 3. I know this is a popular execution and a lot of people like it. And granted, it's kind of funny, but it doesn't really fit Warlord as much as I would like. Again, I look at Warlord as this grizzled old war veteran who's seen a lot and done a lot, and he's waiting on that really strong fight. And this one feels a little too comical for me. Like, I don't see the war veteran who's frustrated with the world and just wants a good fight. I see a guy who's pulling a goofy cartoon moment, you know? So that gives this one a 13 out of 16, which is an 81%. Next is Head on a Platter. All right, and that line he said, I believe it means you'll be a feast for the crows. Because I recognize the word kraukenar, which means crow. Anyway, so Head on a Platter, that's a lethality level of 4, which, I mean, obviously you took off the head. For realism, though, I gave it a 3. I don't know if a one-handed swing like that with an ultimate could so easily take off the head. I don't know about that. If it were two-handed, I wouldn't have much of an issue. One of the things that I was doing some research into decapitations, because I kept worrying, like, am I being fair to decapitations? Do I need to be a little bit more lenient with that? So I was doing some research, and I found out that there were swords in the past that were designed specifically to take off a head, but they were usually two-handed, and they were usually very heavy. Even with a very well-placed strike, even with a very well-placed swing, swords still can have trouble going through heads completely in one swing. In fact, there are guillotines, devices specifically designed to cut off heads, that don't always get the job done in one swing. Mary Queen of Scots, her head did not come off with one clean stroke, and she was set up for it. So with that in mind, again, a one-handed strike downward, I'm not sure it would take the head off. So I had to question that. But I did give it a 3, because, I mean, Warlord's a strong guy. Maybe he can pull it off. For efficiency, I did give it a 2. You're taking your time walking over there to do the attack, all for kind of a joke. And you're also giving up your shield. Now, the sword, okay, but at least if you give up your sword to do an execution, you have your shield for defense. Here you have your sword for defense, and that's not nearly as good for defense as a shield is, but that's just me. So that's a 2 for efficiency. For cool factor, though, 4. Yeah, I like this one. I think it's really cool. The line sounds badass. The way he stomps. Do you notice that when he stomps towards Warden, the ground kind of shakes? Like, watch him when he starts marching forward. Like, the whole world kind of shakes for a minute. Like, you just see this powerful monster coming for you, and I can just see Warden going, no, oh, no. He's done. I also think it's hilarious that Warden just holds the shield for him. Why doesn't he drop the shield? That's so silly. So that gives us a score of 13 out of 16, which is an 81%. Next is Attitude Adjuster. Well, that was fast. All right, so for lethality, that's a 4. If we look at it from the other perspective, we can see that when Warlord plants the sword, he's going right through the Warden's either throat or heart, so this is definitely going to kill. For realism, 4 again. I could totally see you doing this. Even the flip, I could see you doing this. The way Warlord gets underneath him, I like that. I like how smoothly he did that. That was very cool. And then he followed up immediately with the strike, which I definitely like. So that's a 4 for realism. For efficiency, I also give it a 4. This is very, very fast. He never sacrifices his weapon, and he's done very quickly. I like that a lot. For cool factor, though, I did have to give it a 3. I think it's just because, for one thing, you didn't need to do the flip. While I like the flip, you didn't need to do it. And it is just a stab downward into the heart. And also there's the name. Why is this an attitude adjuster? I don't know how this adjusts anyone's attitude. It's just flipping a guy. But still, it is neat. I still like it. I don't have any real problem with it. It just didn't wow me like some of the others. Like, remember, like, Can't Punch This? Like, I looked at that and I said, oh man, that's so perfect. That's exactly what I see in Warlord. This one is kind of like, okay, it's not bad, I guess. It's good. So for this one, it did get a 15 out of 16, which is a 94%. Still a good one. Still a good one. Just, yeah, that's what I changed it to. Next is the Viking's Elbow. Yeah, one thing that we see a lot with Warlord is like some pro wrestling moments, like WWE moments. All right, so this one, unfortunately, is a lethality of 2. Here's the problem. The shield coming down at that velocity into the rib cage would probably be very, very painful, and there's a good chance you'll even break a rib. Yeah, you would probably break a rib doing this. But a broken rib is not a death blow. Like, this cannot guarantee a kill. Now, you might say, oh, but Raven, what about the fact that he's pulling the sword out first? Yeah, he's doing that, but I don't care about what happened beforehand. I'm talking about, like, this move itself. Would this move kill? And I don't think it would. There's a possibility that if you broke a rib, it could puncture a heart or a lung and might kill. But that's a might. I can't say for certain that this would kill. So that is a 2 for lethality. For realism, I mean, it's a 4. You could do this. You could sweep a guy off of his feet and then elbow slam him. I mean, you could totally do that. I don't see a reason why you couldn't. But for efficiency, it's a 2. I do not like the fact that he went down on the ground with the Warden. This is a bad idea in any battlefield scenario. If you deliberately throw yourself on the ground in the middle of a battlefield just to do this execution, especially an execution that you can't guarantee will kill, that is a very poor decision. It's funny to watch, and it is quick, but it puts you in a vulnerable situation, so it gets a 2 for efficiency. And then for cool factor, it gets a 1. I'll be real honest, I do not like the pro wrestling moves that Warlord does. They look kind of goofy. I can tell exactly where they're referenced from, and they use it's kind of like it's like I'm watching an ancient warrior doing something that I know in modern day is where it came from. It would be kind of like if I saw a Warlord do a finger gun, bang bang, to fake out someone. While that's funny, it's like, why would he know what a finger gun is? Why would that work at all? You know, that kind of thing. Like, it's one of those moments where I'm like, come on, you're an ancient warrior using medieval weapons of sword and shield. Why am I watching you do a pro wrestling maneuver that I know a Viking would have no idea what that is? So that does bother me a little bit, which gives this one a 9 out of 16, which is a 56%. Next is Beatdown. Oh boy, okay, so for lethality, that's a 4. You beat a guy in the head enough times with the edge of that shield repeatedly, yeah, you're going to break a skull, you're going to cause severe brain damage, this guy's dead. For realism, that's a 4 as well. You could do this. In fact, shields were often used for this. Just ask the Spartans. They did that plenty of times. And you could totally do it with a Viking shield as well, so there's no problem with that. For efficiency, again, a 4. What I like here is the Warlord is using the sword to hold the Warden in place while they continue to beat them, which is perfect. I think that's exactly the way you should do this. So I definitely like that. But for cool factor, I do give it a 3. And the only reason is it's 3 shield bashes repeated. And I'm sorry, it just doesn't wow me like I feel like it should. I know some people are going to say, come on, Raven, that's a little unfair, but it just doesn't blow my mind. Like, the way I look at it is, while this is neat, I can't see a Viking repeatedly beating someone with their shield over and over like this. Maybe what they could do is beat them once, and then as they stumble back, stab them through the head, or cut open their throat, or tackle them down with the shield. Like, I see the shield bash across the head as a setup for the death, not the death itself. So for me, I'm like, this is cool, don't get me wrong. I think it's neat, but it's just not as neat as what I saw earlier. That's all. So that gives this one a 15 out of 16, which is a 94%. Please understand that that just because it isn't a perfect score does not mean I don't like it. I can still like it. 94 is still a great grade, you know? But still, that's just where I stand on that one. Next up is Head Scissor. All right, so obviously with Head Scissor, that's going to be a 4 out of 4 for lethality. Obviously, you're taking off the head. For realism, though, I had to give it a 1. I do not think you could take off the head like that. Here's the problem. I mentioned earlier that when you're taking off the head, what you need is weight, a lot of velocity, a lot of speed, and a lot of precision. The only thing here is precision. You're putting the sword where it needs to be, but you're trying to treat the shield and sword like a pair of scissors and just snip it off. That's not going to work very well, especially when the shield is not bladed too, so this would not work. You would not be able to cut off the head like this. Maybe slit the throat, but you wouldn't be able to take off the head, so that's a 1 for realism. For efficiency, I gave it a 3. While it is fast enough, I don't like the fact that you're locking the sword and shield in that position at all, especially when you know it won't kill. So yeah, I'm going to have to give that a 3. And then finally, cool factor, it's a 2. I'm just not a fan of this one. This one doesn't really appeal to me at all. It's just kind of weak, just snip and then move on. I don't really like that. So that gives this one a 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. Next is Shield Bash Uppercut. All right, so for Shield Bash Uppercut, I'm going to give this one a 2 out of 4 for lethality. Now here's the thing. Do I think that a Shield Bash to the face like that could kill? Sure, it could. Will it? Well, that's the question, isn't it? And because that's the question, I can't really give this a 4, can I? I've been hit in the face before by blunt objects, by fists, by a knee once. That was fun. And I'm still okay. While I do think that a Shield Bash like that could potentially kill, I can't say for certain that it would. I have seen people get thrown off of their feet by very strong blows and then get up. So, hard to say. So I gave this one a 2 for lethality. For realism, I gave it a 3. I don't think you could lift someone off their feet with just a one-handed Shield Bash like that. I think what would happen is their head would rock back and they'd fall over on their butt, but I don't think you'd be able to knock them off their feet like that. For efficiency, I gave it a 3. My problem here, efficiency-wise, is if you're on the battlefield, why won't you use your sword? You have a sword in your hand. Why would you use your head and then your shield to do it? Why not just use your sword? So that's my issue there. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 2. Kind of like the last one, it doesn't appeal to me. It's fine, I guess, but I guess it annoys me that you have a sword, a very good sword. Kill him with it. Don't use your shield. Don't use your headbutt. Just sword bash him. Headbutt him and then sword slash. What if you used all 3? Headbutt, shield bash, and then stab him through the head. You know, something like that. Come on, like use your dang sword, but whatever. That's my stance on that. So that gives this one a 10 out of 16 again, which is a 63%. Next up is Cumbered Bash. Ooh, got him. Okay, so let's look at that from the other perspective while we do this, because I want to see something specifically. Okay, so the sword is going through the head. Okay, I was a little worried that it was missing the head entirely, but it is going through. Okay, so for lethality, that's a 4. You're stabbing right through the skull. You're going to kill them. This is a death blow. For realism, though, I gave it a 3 because look at the way he clotheslines him. He clotheslines him, and then he does a complete flip, like a 180 flip. You can't do that. I don't think you could do that with a mere clothesline. I think that they would land on their back. I think they'd land on their back. I don't think they do a full flip. They're not even running with enough velocity for them to do a full flip. So that's not very realistic. For efficiency, I gave it a 2. Here's the thing. Once he lands on his stomach like that, he then plants his knee, puts his shield into the back, and then stabs. The knee and the shield part don't matter. You've got him on the ground and he's delirious. Just stab him now. You don't need to down, stab. It's not necessary. You're wasting too much time to get that done. So because of that, I had to give this an efficiency score of 2. A little bit too much time wasted. For cool factor, I gave it a 3. I do like the precision of this. I do like how it feels. I do feel like it fits Warlord to a certain extent. My problem is it does take a little too much time, and for me, that does kind of hurt it a little bit. And plus, if you look at the animation, notice how Warlord's sword looks once it goes into the head. Take a very close look. The sword, you can see the edge of it. Look. You can kind of see the edge of it on the side. Look very close to Warden's helmet, and you'll be able to see the sword sticking out. Maybe it'll be easier if we switch perspectives. Have a look. Yeah, you can kind of see the edge, like the edge of the sword out on the side. So that means it's only going through halfway of the head. And I don't know, I'm worried that wouldn't be as precise. I would have liked that to have been a little bit more precise, but that's just me. So that gives this one a 12 out of 16, which is a 75%. Next is Head Carrier. Ooh. Yeah, I got some stuff to say about that. So, for Head Carrier, that's a 4 for lethality. You've taken off the head, so obviously that's going to kill. But for realism, that's a 1. Okay, look at the way Warlord cuts off the head. It looks like slice and then flip. Leaving out the fact that I don't think a slice with that little power would take off the head. The head stays attached until Warlord throws the body. How the heck did that work? That doesn't make a lick of sense. It doesn't even twit like. And look at Warden's hands; they're still up because there's still things coming from the head. Like there's still like signals coming from the head. So what the heck happened here? No, that doesn't work for me. That's definitely a 1. For efficiency, it's a 2. Okay, let's say that you did cut off the head. Let's say you did cut off the head. Why'd you waste time grabbing the head and flipping it? Why'd you waste time with that? You shouldn't waste time with that. Get on with the fight. You took off his head. You don't need to stand there and flip his body. That's totally inefficient. And then for cool factor, I'll give it a 3. It is funny. It is funny. Okay, I can laugh. I can laugh at it. It's funny. Just take the head. Whee. It's funny. Haha. I liked it, but still, it's just not as great as it could be. So that gives this one another 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. Next is the Heartattack. I don't know what that had to do with heart attacks, but okay. Again, we have a pro wrestling looking move. All right, so for lethality, I'm going to give that a 3. This is a little bit more likely to kill than the previous pro wrestling move, but still, it is not a 100% guarantee. It looks like what he's doing is he's knocking to the ground and then breaking the neck, which, yeah, is likely to kill. You could probably kill doing that. Doesn't mean you will, but you could probably kill with that. So I'll give that a 3 for lethality. For realism, it's a 4. Hey, you could do this. I don't recommend it, but you could do this. It's possible. For efficiency, I gave it a 2. This is dumb, what you're doing here. In a battlefield scenario, you're basically throwing yourself on the ground and hoping that your neck break works. The only reason I don't give it a 1 is because technically he's still holding his shield up in a defensive posture, so he could still protect himself. My problem is you didn't have to go on the ground in the first place. You could have just stabbed the dude or knocked him to the ground and then stabbed him yourself. You don't need to put both of you on the ground. That's unnecessary, and in a battlefield circumstance, that is going to be very bad. And then for cool factor, it's a 1. I think this is a very dumb looking execution. I know that people like to do it. I know it's technically a fast execution. I don't like that it makes you vulnerable. I don't like that it's based on pro wrestling. I don't like that, I just don't like it. I don't like it. And that's my stance on it. But that does give it a 10 out of 16, which is another 63%. We're seeing a lot of those. And then finally, like a stuck pig. Yeah, boy. All right, so for lethality, this is a 4. The strike is center mass. You're going to be destroying the internal organs, and all the struggling and writhing that the warden is doing is only making it worse for him. So that's going to kill, most likely, especially with all that blood loss we're seeing. For realism, I mean, it is a 4. The only reason he's not pulling out the sword is because Warden's fighting back and trying to resist. I don't know why Warden is. If it were me, I'd be trying to get the thing out of me so that I could run away. But regardless of that, still, whatever. It's still a 4. You could do this. For efficiency, it is definitely a 1. I don't like this. And let me tell you why. Of course, someone's going to say, well, come on, Raven, you can't judge the Warlord for this. Warden's resisting. Warden's holding on to the sword. Well, you know what Warlord could do to fix that? The thing that he's been doing to kill for a while, shield bash him. If the guy's holding on to your sword and you want him to let go, hit him with the shield, knock him off your sword. But no, he just kind of goes, oh man, you're not letting go, are you? Well, I better kick you off. Like, no, use your shield. You could do this very easily. You could stab him and then shield bash him off your sword. That'd be fine. I would not mind that. It's the way you'd want to use the shield. If your sword's stuck on him, hit him with your shield and get him off. I don't understand why Warlord can understand, oh, I can kill you by hitting with my shield, but I can't get you off my sword by hitting you with my shield. Use your head, Warlord. Use your head. So that's an efficiency of 1. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 1 as well. This is... I don't like it. I don't like this one. It's just essentially, I've stabbed you, and now the only... Let me put it this way, guys. Think about this for a second. Think about this. Let's say that Warden did not grab the sword and just fell off the sword like they were supposed to. What would be execution-y about this? How would this look like? It basically looks like, aha, stabbed you. That's it. That's all there is to it. And the fact that Warlord doesn't have the common sense to just shield bash him off the sword is just silly to me. You're wasting time. You're making yourself exposed. You're not doing what you could to get him off the sword. So while this is lethal and realistic, it is lacking heavily in efficiency, and it's just annoying to look at. So that gives this one, guess it, 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. Wow, I think I think we had 7. I think 63% in this overall grading. Wow. But there it is. All right, folks, we are done. We've wrapped up all of the executions for Warlord. That is 17 total executions, and that's a lot to go through. But after adding up all of the scores that we got and averaging them out to figure out what we get, we have, wait for it. You waiting for it? A 77%. Gosh, I was very surprised by this score. I was not expecting it to be that high. Now, the thing is, I was thinking about why this happened. Like, why did he get a score like that? And I'll tell you why. I have a theory as to why. Warlord had a lot of really high lethality scores. He had a lot of really good scores in lethality. He was very lethal. But the problem is the rest of his scores, realism, efficiency, and cool factor, kept falling on the average scaling. And what was really funny is we started out with 3 100%. I think Warlord has had more 100% than any other hero so far. So he started off really strong, but then a lot of his others ended up on the low end of average. And no matter how good you start out, if you start slacking off and getting those low end of average scores, eventually you're going to start suffering. You're going to see that grade drop slowly. I think what he really needed was some consistency in his style of movement and consistency in personality. Sometimes he was a really stoic warrior who wanted to show respect to his enemy. Other times he was a pro wrestler who wanted to be really flashy and stupid with how he killed. Sometimes he knew how to use his shield properly to shield bash his opponent to death. And other times he forgot he even had a shield or a sword. I don't know. I feel like if he was a little bit more consistent with how he understood the shield and sword in his hand, then it would have been a lot better. Because, guys, let's be clear. The shield and sword is a weapon combination as old as time itself. It is an excellent combination of weapons, and the way the Vikings used it was absolutely exceptional. So I genuinely think that this could have been a very outstanding hero, and he almost was. There were a few moments there that I felt like, man, you really didn't need to do these. Like, for example, some of his pro wrestling moves, some of his just really, like his elbow move. I think that the Vikings elbow was the worst one he had, and it just looked so goofy. I think that's the problem. I always saw Warlord as the stoic, strong, austere badass, like this person who's seen tons of battle and just wants to really see, like he looks at the world and says, what's the point of it all? Why am I fighting? I need to find that one honorable fight that's really going to really challenge me and open my mind, you know, that kind of thing. And then I just see him do stupid pro wrestling. He's climbing up the ladder. Oh God. And then I just go, no, that's not what I see in Warlord. But what do you guys think? Do you guys enjoy Warlord? Do you like these executions? Did you agree with the overall outcome? Do you think it was too low or too high? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, but be respectful about it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care.